I think I'm going to join the call and say welcome as people join. Hello, Pete. Hello, Rob, Kat, Connor. Welcome. My able partner, Timothy, Robert. Very warm welcome. We'll get started in a few minutes. I will just allow further people to join. Welcome, Lee. How are we all today? We all good?
Good afternoon.
Oh, good afternoon, Lee.
Sorry, I was trying to get off mute. You know what it's like, clicking like crazy all across your screen, trying to hit the right button.
Oh, it's not. Yeah, it's lovely to hear voices, and you know, I'll give you some admin at the start. We encourage interaction, which is lovely. So yeah, lovely to hear from you, Lee. Morning, Trent. Morning, afternoon. It's afternoon, isn't it? It's afternoon for me anyway.
Definitely afternoon.
Morning here in Idaho.
Morning. So I can hear already we have some US audience and some UK, which is lovely. Well, I'm getting responses into the form as well, which is lovely. So we'll get going in a minute or two. I'll do a little bit of preamble for those of you who've not joined us on a live stream before. Do a bit of introduction. Connor will join me on camera, and we'll get started. So yeah. In the meantime, if you want to post in chat, say hello to each other. Post where you're calling in from. I can see quite a few people joining now. Welcome, Imran, Julie. Very warm welcome. Is this anybody's first time on one of our live streams? Hey, Teresa, welcome.
Yeah, it's me, Rob from Spain. Yeah, it's my first time on one of these. I've done lots on Microsoft's forum, but not on this one.
Okay, cool. Well, it's lovely to have you here. Love to have everybody here. Just to let you know as we start, because we are live on our stream. If you don't wish to be live and public on the stream, you can turn your camera off. You can keep your microphone off. But if you're happy to, as Connor and I will be on a live stream, then great to see people. Great to see human beings. And so what I'll do is I'll just let the chat come in for a few moments. Hi, Rob. Welcome. Did you say you're from Spain or you're living in Spain?
Yeah, I'm in the southern Spain. Yeah.
Oh, lovely. Very nice. I've just come back from there. Come back from Moreira, which is
right,
not quite so around the corner a bit.
No, we're further south down on the Costa Maria. So
beautiful. What time is it there? It's 2 a.m. Okay, yeah. So for me, it's about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. 3 for you. Yeah. Lovely. Well, so for those of you who've not been to one of these before, these are a regular occurrence in the Academy. We will be shifting ever so slightly in September, but I'll do that in a moment. But every week, either Connor, who will introduce himself in a minute, or myself will be live on the Academy. We try different things over the years. Over the months, we've done things from build to explore alongs. We've solved particular problems, but we've settled for a little while to see how it is for everybody on helping answer any questions and challenges that you've all got. So I'm John. I'm one of the coaches from the Academy, the real life humans that exist behind the Collab 365 Academy. And you can see on camera now, somebody else has just joined me. Hey, Connor.
Hiya, how are we doing?
Good. Nice to see you for the second time today.
Yeah,
you all ready for AMA?
Sorry, what's that? You've broken up there a little bit.
Are you all ready for AMA?
I am indeed. Yeah, just again a bit of a background. John's introduced himself. I think really got much more to add to that than I'm also a support coach here at the Collab 365 team.
That's what we do, right? That's what we do day in, day out.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a different type of session today, so quite excited for this one.
Yeah, it is. And we're going to try this, and we will try another one of a different flavour next week. I'm going to be joined by Jessica Jolly actually next week, who is a specialist in Power BI. So if data and Power BI and the new world of Fabric is your thing, then same time, same place next week. But for this week, yeah, we decided we're going to settle on Power Automate, didn't we? And have a little ferret around, see what we can find out. For those of you who've not been to a live stream before, they're really casual affairs. We'll be driven sometimes by yourselves. We've got some questions in our own minds that we'll answer, but don't be afraid to chirp in, ask your questions. And through the course of today, we hope to share some knowledge with you that we've discovered and also help some questions that have come in. So I think, yeah, without further ado, just a little bit of admin, as I say, we are live streaming this. What that means really, the only thing that means is you can watch it in the Academy. That's fine. We're not specifically taking a recording of this, but it is streamed out to our YouTube channel, which will be viewable later. So look, if there's something in it you want to watch, we can post the YouTube link back in for you. But if you prefer not to be on a camera on a live public broadcast, then stay off camera, because the chat and all that good stuff doesn't get broadcast. It's just what you're seeing on your screen. So Power Automate AMA. Where should we start, Connor? Should we start with some of the questions that have come in?
Yeah, just before we do, just those that have joined as well, I've just pinned a link inside of the meeting chat. So if you do have any questions and you'd like us to give us that, give the best shot of us answering, then just pop them into that form, and we'll see if we can get to them. Can't guarantee that we'll get to everybody's today, but we'll do our best to answer the questions that come in there.
Yeah, just to let you know, so it is about what we'll probably spend about an hour to an hour and 15. We will probably try and wrap this up at about 3:15 today. So yes, stick around. We'll see how many we can get through. But I think without further ado, we can dive into a couple. And if it's all right with you, Connor, I might start actually, because we had a really interesting one. For those of you who don't know, Connor and myself, we also develop quite a bit of the training material and the learning courses that you'll see in the Academy. I'm just going to switch my screen now so you see what I'm talking about. We live and breathe this Academy. Can I just get a thumbs up if people can see my screen okay? Yeah, you can. Good. So we live and breathe stuff in here. I've lost my train of thought now. So we develop quite a lot of the courses that you'll see down the left-hand side of the Academy. You won't see all of these. I'm an admin, I see everything. But you'll sort of see us popping up. And in the course of one that I'm doing right now, which is Power Automate, it's sort of a non-beginner's Power Automate. We already have that one called the Jumpstart for Power Automate. I'm developing this step-up challenge, and there's lots of extra skills that we're trying to share in this step-up challenge. And in the course of doing that, a question popped in, and let me just find it, from Rainero. Let me just see if Rainero's on the call today. Don't think he's here yet, but that's fine. So a question popped in from Rainero. So let me just go to that question. It was in the forum yesterday, and it's about approvals. Quick show of hands, or yes or no in chat. Who's used approvals in Power Automate? Yeah, it's a really common use case for approvals. Teresa, okay, cool. So what I'll do is I'll take you through a sort of a fairly rudimentary approval. Oh, that's great. So you're new to this as well. Fantastic. Hey, let's get a show of hands. Who is completely new to Power Automate on this call today? Obviously yourself, Teresa. Cool. Okay. What I'll do then is, I mean, I won't dwell on these questions for ages, same as for Connor, and chip in, Connor, if like you spot something and you think you'd like me to pause on it. I did promise myself. Okay, ignore that. So right, the question came in from Rainero around these things called approvals. So I'm going to give you a bit of context for Power Automate before I do, but the question is, in using an approval, they are generally used where you perform an action, and after that action you ask for somebody else's approval for something else next to happen, and generally it's a pretty binary yes or no. And you'll see Rainero's question here is, can we customize those approvals? So lucky as it was, I was actually working in this space, and I thought, well, do you know what, I'm just going to show you an example of something that I'm building where I can demonstrate what an approval looks like, and also I can demonstrate how to customize it. So what I'll do is I'll create a brand new Power Automate flow. For those of you who might not ever have used Power Automate before, most of us have got a license for it. If we've got a Microsoft 365 license, it tends to come as part of the very basic entry-level licenses. But you can go to make.powerautomate.com and you'll see an interface much like this one here. So that's not my name, you may have spotted. If you ever want to play with this stuff, I don't know whether you want to speak to this at all, Connor, but there are opportunities to get free licenses with Microsoft. Is that something do you mind just sort of sharing a little bit about that, Connor, because you use this a lot as well? There is
Well,
a way
in
to pop it
terms
up.
of getting access to a test environment, if you like.
Yeah, just while I answer Imran's question.
Yeah, of course. So obviously, Microsoft, for those that are kind of new to the whole Power Platform experience, which is mainly where we focus a lot of our time and effort, there is something that exists called the Microsoft 365 Developer Program. I think they might have changed the name for it. You know what Microsoft's like for changing names randomly and changing the way things work. But yes, I think it's called the Developer Program, which after a quick Google search, you'll be able to see that and basically be able to create an account. And what that does for you, as you can see, John's just going into this for you now, is it basically creates you a free kind of sandbox to kind of play around with. I mean, out of the box during the setup process, you can get things like some kind of dummy users to kind of work around with and test with. So you've got kind of that multiple role sort of environment to work with. But you can really start kind of going to town, creating things inside of any of the cloud platform services that exist, including all of the other Microsoft 365 services. But what's really useful about this is you're going to be able to start building and testing things without having to kind of worry about affecting your real world data that kind of sits in your real work environment. So yeah, what we do kind of recommend when we are testing things out and building things is to go ahead and use one of these. I think it lasts for a long period of time, and you can always extend it, I think. With the click of a button. So
I've never had to leave the one that I created years ago. You just get perpetual renewals on it, which is quite nice. But shh, don't tell anybody.
Yeah, I think when you start kind of plugging into real world data, I think a lot of flags will start appearing, and they'll start realizing that okay, you are using this for real world scenarios, and it isn't just a testing ground. But essentially, you do get the kind of full functionality of a paid license during that trial period, and like I mentioned, you can extend it. They often prompt you, would you like to? Unfortunately, your trial has run out. Would you like to extend this? And you can literally just press a button and extend it for a further 30 days. So very useful to have, especially when taking any of our courses, any of our challenges, or testing and building things for yourself.
Yeah, I'd say it's essential for that kind of work, Connor, because it's the place you can play and you get all the services that you need. Power Automate, Power Apps, Power Virtual Agents you can play with. You've got Teams instances. As you can see here, I've got an instance of Teams with some users on it. They're great things. So that, as a little bit of a deviation, is why you're seeing me called Adele. I do this all the time, and I would say huge health warning: never use development tools to create production apps. It's just bad practice, and you'll end up you'll end up in a whole host of pain. So I only ever do this just to play around with things. So that's what I'm going to do. Yeah, I've got Adele. She's one of my test users. She looks very much like Helen Jones. So she must have been on this tenant as well, who also from time to time works with us, and we'd love to work with more. So yeah, I'm Adele today, and I'm just going to create a flow. So for those of you brand new to it, the interfaces are getting a lot better. Since I started playing with this and you started playing with it a couple of years ago, Connor, things have changed a lot, haven't they? They've got a lot more user friendly. So it really is as easy as, if you've ever created flows, you've got your flows there to create a brand new flow. And I'm just going to do, what shall I do? I'll do an automated flow, because that's kind of useful in the context of what Renero was talking about. You have types of flows, and
just a quick heads up, Renero is in the chat now as well.
Oh, lovely. Hello and welcome. You're about to get your question answered, perhaps in a roundabout way, because this is live stream, so I'll get to ramble, which is probably a bad thing. I've also got some jokes if people need jokes later on as well. But genuinely, I asked AI for some jokes, and it gave me some, and I genuinely laughed out loud. I'm really sorry. It kind of, that gives you a pitch for who I am. Connor's the more somber, serious one. Very serious person. Yeah. So right. Anyway, shush, John. Right, so I'm going to create an automated cloud flow. What I'm going to do is I'm going to trigger this when a SharePoint item's created, and I'm going to use something that I was playing around with, which is this is a form actually. that sits within SharePoint, and I've just embedded it in SharePoint. It's a pretty rudimentary form, but I actually use this for the Power Automate Step Up course that I've been building. So I'm just going to skip this. I don't like that interface. I tend to name things when I get into it. So it's a SharePoint trigger. It's not a SharePoint trigger, excuse me. It's a forms. Yes, it's a forms trigger when a new form is submitted. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with Power Automate, when you speak the words, you can tend to find what to do. So there's two parts to a flow. There's a trigger, the thing that kicks it off, and there's an action, and the action are the things that you do. So as long as you can say the words, I want to do something when a form is submitted, you can generally figure out what you need to type into the boxes. It gets more complex as you get more into Power Automate, but you've just seen what I did there. I typed forms. So when a new response is submitted, let me just go and pick the form. It's all nice and drag and drop. It's not difficult. Travel requests, I know it's called that because I've created it for a course. So when a new response is submitted, nothing yet is happening. I'm just going to then use the forms group again, and I'm going to get all the details from that form. So it's just a bit of a two-step process to get information from a form, but it's quite a common use case that to go through. And very often people think that they can add the trigger and then go ahead and use data from a form. Correct if I'm wrong, Connor. I always use this approach. Yeah, cool. Okay, so, and the reason for that is because you need this thing called the response ID, which is a unique identifier of a person submitting a form. So I'm only doing this just to show you the process where what I'll do is I'll now set up a very basic approval and then we'll run it through. So, okay. Because I can speak the words approval, let's just have a look at what options we've got for approvals. So you'll see here I've got a group of what's called actions which relate to approvals. Now, the one I'm going to set up for you, Renero, is going to be a start and wait for an approval. So it's a process that will begin, will go off to somebody with, to your point, a yes, no, and then we're going to update that from just being a yes, no to being something a bit clever. So I'm going to set it up. You get various different types of approval. I'll just set it up with this very binary first to respond, and the response must be an approve or reject. Let's just create it quickly. So new approval, doesn't matter what's in it. I'm going to assign it to now. I may need to do an extra step here. I might need to go and get the details. So this form, let's just show you. I've hard coded some email addresses in it for approvers. I'll give this a go, but I've got a funny inclination I'm going to need to play around with this. All we need to do, okay, so I'm going to stick it in there. So approver email. Okay. I'm not going to put too much, I'm not going to put anything in it, to be honest. I just want to show you the process and click save. Let's just see if that will give me a useful run to demonstrate. But the process of switching from a yes, no approval is super simple. I just want to give you an example. Okay, let's just manually test that. So what I've just done there is I've just set up some really, really simple stuff. What I expect it to do is a form will be submitted. When it's submitted, I'll get an approval sent, and I'll show you where it gets sent to this person that I'm going to select on the form. So let's enter a new form. Let's test. I haven't practiced this, so I may have missed out some steps. Just going to put the word reason. Do you know what? I'm going to just grab Adele's email. This is the way I do it. It's the slow hand way because it's a test domain. You get these weird on Microsoft email addresses, but they are real email addresses you can use and send stuff to. Excuse me. I'm just going to go stick it into here. Okay, make sure there's nothing dodgy in there. So I'll send it off to Diego because I know I can access his account as well. Doesn't matter about the destination, the distance. Start dates, give us some information. It's a car, bit of travel. So submit. So what I'm expecting now to happen is that my flow, you just see me click back, will start to run through its steps. So it's detected my form. It's got the response details. You can see all the information there from the form. And by the way, as I'm going through, so if I do go too quick or there's a bit you're interested in or you want me to hurry up and get to another bit, just pop into chat. That's fine. So we're now waiting for an approval from somebody. I know that approval's Diego. So I've set up, it's another thing that's quite handy, and we should do a demo on this, Connor, at some point, is setting up different profiles, because it's super handy for testing.
I always still find it's a bit buggy when you do that. For me, anyway, I always find that it tries to. It's like the profiles are stored in cache, so I don't tend to use that. I tend to use just different browsers.
Do you? Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I find exactly that problem when I'm going from our own tenant to this dev tenant. It always seems to remember me, irrespective of the fact I'm trying to be a Dell. However, when I sign out on that dev tenant and go into it, then I'm within the tenant and it seems to be okay. And this will make me a fool because this won't work. So let's go over to Renera, who I'm already signed in as. Let's have a look at what we've got. So we've got a new approval here. Just for those of you who've never used approvals, there's a few ways you can process approvals. It is just a process that Microsoft have given us. You can go into what's called, I call the approval center here. You can as well go across to Teams. I may as well just give it a few seconds and show you. I won't do that. Oh, let's try it. Open in Diego. So you can do Teams and you can also do approvals in Outlook. Yeah, that's just going to play me by the fool because it's not going to work there. I'll do it here, but there are 3 different locations, and when Connor's chatting in a bit, I'll have a look at that. So you'll see here I've got a simple yes no. So correct me if I'm wrong, Renario, this is what you would like to see we can adapt. Is that right? Can we do something more than this? I'll just approve it so you can see what it looks like. You've got approve, reject, reassign. Standard out of the box stuff Microsoft gives you. Okay, so when I go back to my flow, I will see it, and what I would be able to do, in fact, I'll just do it now. I'll add a new step and I'll put what's called a compose, which is just a container for data. So I'm going to use the data operations, going to use compose, and I'll just put the output from that approval into that so you can see it. So you'll notice there that when you start an action, again, if you're new to Power Automate, a lot of what you need to do and a lot of the data that you're gathering as you go gets presented back to you in what's called dynamic content. So it's automatically understood that when it's doing an approval, there's a certain amount of information out of the box I'm going to get back. And this outcome is a really useful bit of information. So I'm just going to rerun that process very quickly. But again, another great tip if you're new to Power Automate is use this little test button at the top there, and you can just rerun the same data through without having to go and submit another form. And you'll see what I did there. I just clicked the test I want to run, click test. Yeah, cool. Okay, so I'll just go back here and then we'll just have a look at the outcome, and then I'll show you what I would do to just adjust it. So this is the 4 seconds ago. New approval. I think that's the right one. It is. We'll approve this one. And I'll flip back over to Adele, and we'll see this little timer quickly go to there, and we can see the output from the approval. Okay, so that's the basics of any approval flow. You can do it for documents, you can do it for someone adding something to a list and approve it before it gets written to another list, and all sorts of wonderful stuff. Have you used approvals much, Connor, out of the context of like these kind of processes?
I mean, I've only ever used approvals when it comes to the kind of yes, no, approve. I've not used any of the custom responses.
Okay.
However, I've seen people use them and then having to use the kind of switch, I believe, to kind of give you the different outcomes, different possibilities and trees that you can, branches, if you like, that you can go down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I'll show that in the process. Actually, that's a really good point. I mean, out the box, you have got, there's, as you saw there, I think there were 3 options. You can reassign it, but ultimately that only gives you two outcomes from the approval. You can pass it on for someone, but that person can only either approve or reject it. And if that is the case, what you will tend to do is you will tend to use a different group of actions called control actions and use a condition, and you'll say, look at the outcome for the approval, which will be this one. And if the outcome is equal to approve, then do something down this leg, or if not, do something down this leg. So what Reinero was alluding to, what you've just mentioned there, is that sometimes you might want more than that. So here's what I do. Just get rid of that. Okay, so you can keep the same approval step in place, and you're just simply taking another option, if you like, which gives you a different set of boxes to fill in, and it's these you want, the custom responses. Again, I'm just going to wait for one response. You can set this up so you have chains of people if you wish. But really all you're doing here is, let's do the basics, approve. In fact, I'll do the ones that I show you in the jumpstart. So I want the options to be approve. I want the options to be refer to manager. I want the option to be reject. Too expensive. For example, if it's an expenses claim, reject. Other reason, I don't know. So you see that I can start to like define what I want the responses to be in this approval. We'll give it a title. So just put request for now. I'll get rid of that. Again, we'll assign it to the approval email. Interesting, that did actually work. I was expecting that to kick up a bit of a stink, but it seems all right. Sometimes within Power Automate, you have to think like Power Automate. It wants data in certain formats. If you have spaces in the wrong place, you might need to be thinking about trimming those spaces off before you give it to this. I'm not going to put any more information. I just want to see whether that's right. So let's just double check this. We will allow reassignment, but really that's all you need to do. Then the thing I would do is I would add, to Connor's point, a switch. All a switch allows you to do is have more than one branch based upon some piece of data. So again, if I was to look for the outcome might be approve. I can add another switch branch here. It might be reject. I think it was other. And then you can have a default, which is all other cases that are not covered. So if I had a bit more time, I'd probably put 3 or 4 legs in there, but you'd match to all of these. But let's just match to that one.
Just think one thing to point out here that might be a little bit confusing for people that have used approval process before. A common thing to do, especially when you're using the kind of default out of the box, is you'll dive straight for a condition. That's simply because you are given 2 options. You can approve or you can reject it, which means that you only need that kind of yes or no, that Boolean value that comes from a condition. So you can have a yes tree and a no tree, and that's all you get with the condition. Then just to highlight why we're using a switch here is because we've got multiple different types of responses that aren't going to equal yes or no. So we need to cover those use cases. That's the reason why we're using a switch here rather than a condition.
Yeah, and I think for me, now if you have 2 options here, Connor, you could use that condition, couldn't you?
Of course.
It would be fine. But generally, if you're reaching for customized responses, you can do all sorts of things like, you know, it's within 10% of certain thresholds. You can just put whatever you want into these customized responses, but because there's more than 2, you're absolutely right. That's where the case starts to be useful to you. And this is probably the best way to demonstrate it, is if I actually put another leg into this. So you see, I'm just copying and pasting, and all that's going to happen, I'm not going to do anything as a result of this, but what I will do is I'll copy that branch. You notice again, another tip, if you've not used Power Automate a lot, you can drag and drop actions. Be careful with that, because certain actions will go in and won't come out of different places. But I'm just going to put the outcome from that approval, which is still the same approval, into a compose box so you can see it. But you just get the ability to be much more customized in the process that you follow. So if I've not missed anything, I'm just going to run exactly the same data through, and we should see that we get a slightly different look and feel. There's lots of bells and whistles you can put on this, but Reinero, I hope this gives you the essence of what you might want to do if you if you want to use this sort of thing. So it's gone to the start and wait for approval. Let's just have a look what that approval now looks like. It's quite nice in the emails because it looks a bit prettier. You'll see here I've got all these options in my drop down. Let me just try, he says, to get signed into Outlook with Renera, because it does look a bit better. There we go. One thing I find really odd is that these approvals go into other. I don't know if anyone uses the focused inboxes. Why it doesn't go into the focused, I don't know. But there you go. This is the one I'm just doing now. So it's not great in the preview, but if I open this one up, you'll see it's quite nice. You know, it's quite a nice interface. You get to customize it. It's what's called an adaptive card behind the scenes, but you know, it's quite pretty. I can put comments into it. Don't like you. Submit. Of course, you'd never do that. HR will be onto you like a shot, and quite rightly so. So that is the process of doing more customized approvals. And if I just now go and show you, just to follow this down, these green ticks show you the pathway that's successfully been followed. Then we're going to go into this case, so this leg, because I said refer to manager. That's what I did, and there we go. Just gives you the sort of the essence of what you might do. So I hope that was helpful. I can see Renera said yes, really helpful in the flow you're building. So there you go. There's my first for a long time. Apologies, that was quite rushed. My first demo for a little while on Power Automate, and it worked. Yay!
No hiccups, unlike what's probably to come with mine.
Yeah, oh, I love these demos. For anyone who's not Connor, because he's had to listen to this for 2 days, I've been fighting with doing something in Teams as a result of this leg for the step up, and I got it to work about an hour ago, and I'm delighted. So if you take the step up, you get to the last lesson, it's about lesson 15, and you'll go, I know what pain John went through to show me this. So let's just have a look at questions. Have we got any of those?
Yeah, so just having a look. So Julie's just put in a question a little bit unrelated to this, but we'll get to that one as part of the AMA. I've made a note of that.
Yeah.
The other one, Imran says, I've noticed you can't reassign from Outlook, which is something I've never actually tested as a use case for approvals. I've always gone down the approve or reject route. I've never had to reassign. I think that's because our team's quite small and we don't necessarily need to test those use cases. But that's an interesting one that you just pointed out there.
I think, just bear with me, I think there might be enable. That's interesting. So I did enable reassignment, and you're quite right. It didn't give me the option to do that. That's something I'm going to go and look into, because that seems like it should work.
Again, I think that might be for the Outlook use case, which is the route you went through then.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, the other questions we've got, let's have a look. So George says, can the email be rebranded at all? Now, my assumption here, before I dive into this, would be that because the approval comes from the Microsoft Power Automate kind of bot, if you like, and it doesn't come directly from a specific user, you wouldn't be able to kind of rebrand anything up in that sense.
There's no option to rebrand it. It's not possible.
Yeah. However, if it obviously came from yourself directly, then yes, you'd be able to add things like signatures and that sort of thing on the end of it. But unfortunately, yeah, it because it comes from the Power Automate flow bot itself, that wouldn't be possible.
There's a canny way around it, though, I think. I've not tried this. Well, I have tried it in a different context, but you could use an adaptive card. It's the same process, effectively, although you're not going into the approval center. You could use a piece of technology which is largely sitting behind the scenes here, and you can create adaptive cards which look unique. And it would be a different process. You wouldn't be hooking into this already automated approval process, but you could probably send a branded adaptive card, and that's maybe something we can look at in the future, is to how to do that. But yeah, if branding's really important, you're right, you can't do it with the approvals.
The other thing to potentially try, and again, so I've not gone down this avenue with, is under your start and wait for an approval action, you've obviously got a details area, and you can put various different things in there. I'm not sure if you'd be able to kind of add HTML text to that, and then maybe refer to things like images and specific colors for text. But that's again potentially something that we could look into at some point.
Yeah, interesting. I've been playing around with Markdown. I mean, the Markdown language gives you the ability to structure your messages using special characters like pipes and like dashes for bulleted items. And yeah, to your point, I've never tried putting HTML content in there. I'm pretty sure, given my experience of Power Automate, it would give you some jip.
It doesn't accept HTML. It doesn't accept it.
No, I didn't think it would.
You just have to use Markdown. You can't use HTML.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, branding options limited to answer that question. Let's have a quick look. There's another one there. If you assign an approver, will there be a validation that it's in fact the approver that approves? Just processing what that means.
So in terms of the actual validation, yes, because under the dynamic content, after the approval, you can return the responder's email address. So that does sit within the context of the flow. That information is available to you if you did want to surface that. So yes, you can return, for example, who the requester is. So who's requesting that the approval is being seen to. You can also find information for the actual approver as well. And then after they've approved as well, for example, if you had multiple people have to approve this item, then yes, you can, after this action, return dynamic content to retrieve that list of people that have approved it, if you wanted to. I think that's what you were trying to get at with that question.
Yeah, cheers, Connor. Yeah, I think I mean that very much plays into the fact that sometimes you have, with Power Automate, you have to think a little bit around the problem. It's not always the obvious solution that you think should work that will work. You have to kind of go around it, and that point about sending an email instead might be the branded thing to do. Yeah, finding creative solutions is going to be part of your toolkit when you start to use Power Automate. So that's that demo. So we have another question that popped in, Connor, on the we'll go in order a little bit if you're happy to. There's another one around using Excel and Power Automate.
Yeah, I just wanted to just because I've just loaded up a quick demo, just quickly have a look at Julie Smith's question that was just sitting in chat there about could you cover solutions and if you can move existing flows into a solution. So yeah, what I'll do is I will share my screen.
I'll just spotlight you, Connor, because I think that will work for people being able to see you.
Yeah. So obviously I'm in the Power Apps dashboard here, but you can do this through Power Automate as well. If you go to solutions, obviously I need to make sure I'm in the correct environment, which I'm currently not. So I'll just quickly move to my LMS because I know I have a working solution here. So under your solutions tab, you can see a list of all of your solutions. And if you're interested in knowing how to actually create a solution, build a solution, I can show you that as well. But just to answer the, can you move existing flows into a solution? Yes, you can. I'm not sure if I have any flows on this environment, but essentially once you've gone into your solution, you're presented with a list of kind of default list of things that you can add to a solution, such as Dataverse tables, Power Apps, but also Cloud flows as well. And you can add a bunch of stuff in here. You can create stuff from scratch. You can create a new Cloud flow that you can then add to the solution and package up, or you can do add existing. Now, like I say, I don't think I've got an existing Cloud flow on here. I do not. But what I will do is I will demonstrate how to kind of set this up. If in another environment, I should have one in here. Let's see what environment we've got to work with.
We should do a contest, Connor. Who's got the most environments that they constantly use and forget about? And the person with the most tenants and environments at their disposal at any one time should win a prize. You're like me, we've got like 4 or 5 to faff around with, haven't we?
So yeah, let me just make sure I've got some flows in here. Okay, yeah, so I do have flows. So again, this menu that you see on the dashboard in Power Apps also is going to be almost identical for Power Automate, barring a few things. So you can still access the same content because it sits inside of that kind of Dataverse environment that really sits behind the scenes and pulls everything together in the Power Platform. So you can access this from both menus in the Power Apps and Power Automate. But yeah, if you go to Solutions, what you can do is you can create a new solution. You can give it a name. I'll literally just call this a name. We can give it a publisher. I usually just go for the CDS Common Data Service default publisher, and I'll just click create for now, just so you can kind of see how this works. And you've been given basically a blank solution, which doesn't include obviously any apps, any flows, any security roles that you may have, component libraries, all of that sort of stuff. So I'll just give that a second just to initialize itself. There you go. So we can see that we've got nothing in here at the moment. So like I say, you can come to the new tab and you can start creating new flows. You can start creating new apps, new Dataverse tables, and all of that stuff directly in your solution. And I kind of highlighted this quite a lot in my LMS build that I did for the workshop. If you're interested in getting that, I can probably share a link to you after this little demo.
I'll dig it out, Connor.
Awesome stuff. But yeah, next to the new tab, we've got add existing, and this is where you can basically pull in any apps, any flows, security roles, Dataverse tables, anything that exist in this environment. So when you are packaging up a solution like this, you just need to make sure that all of your flows that you're bringing in, all of the objects, if you like, which is what these are available in context of the environment that you're using. And I've often, like you've just seen before, I was in a different environment and couldn't find any of my flows. But yes, we can just come to automation here and then select cloud flows, and we can go and find a list of flows that exist inside a Dataverse, but also outside a Dataverse as well. So for example, I can just come and pull this flow in by selecting it and pressing add, and it'll say adding solution objects. And I know sometimes Power Apps is usually slow around this time of day for me. I tend to not really do many demos in it, but essentially what will happen is this will be added to your solution. We should see it. There we go. So we can see that now we've got our cloud flow. We just added it here. It's my Connor's test auto cloud flow, but also we've got our connection references as well. So what that's going to do is whenever you do bring in your flows to your solutions, it's going to copy everything that it needs to be able to basically ship this out to other environments, other tenants that you need that will need access to certain things. You can see here that I've got my connection reference as well, which was part of that flow. It's a connection that exists in that flow that now has been pulled across into this solution as well.
So you can do that. Sorry, I was going to say, when you do pull that into a new environment, which is quite routine, you will get prompted to effectively reconnect to the appropriate locations, won't you? So one to be watching out for when you're using solutions is that idea of reconnecting to data sources and re-authenticating is the word I'm after. Yeah,
the good thing about it as well is when you package up solutions and you export them to other environments, is what it's going to do is when it does prompt you, it saves that information that you give it, that authorization, directly in these connection references rather than the Cloudflow, which would usually be the case if you were creating these in Power Automate. So yeah, a really useful thing to do there as well. So hopefully that answered your question, Julie.
I think solutions are, I mean, they're becoming the more default approach with Microsoft, assuming that we are going to need to manage and govern our delivery a little bit more. But I really like the solutions, and I like the fact that you can port solutions between environments and even tenants. And I've started exploring a little bit the AML, the pipelines idea behind all of that. So I don't know if has anyone gone beyond solutions into proper application it's easy to say, application lifecycle management. Be really interested if you have. Yeah, it's not a common thing yet, I don't think, but I think it's one for us to watch out for as citizen developers, makers, etc. Is that need to manage and govern the delivery of our products through different environments now that this is becoming much more of a common practice using low code and no code. just a perspective anyway. Thanks, Connor. Really good.
Yeah, so just before we move on, I see obviously we've got quite a few responses that are coming through in that form that I've pinned to the chat.
Yeah.
I had a look at it because this one came through earlier on in the day from Gail about updating multiple rows inside of SharePoint from Excel. Now, it looks like from the information that you've given us in this form, Gail, that that you've got the majority of work in it, but it seems to be like a little bit of a nuanced area where it's not allowing you to update more than 2 items. So I'm not really sure kind of how to approach that really without seeing your solution and seeing where potentially you might have some errors in your solution. So what I think I'm going to do with that one is I will drop you a message after this session, and we can have a look into that a little bit more kind of on a one-to-one basis, because I think again it's one of those nuanced topics that are very kind of custom to kind of what you've built when I tried to have a look at this earlier. So yeah, I mean there's 2 other responses coming in. So hopefully that's all right with you, Gail, and we can
No, that's fine. I'm not seeing an option to share my screen here, which is probably for the best actually, but yeah, we can look. It's just a little bit chewy, and honestly it's got user error written all over it, but I can't figure out what I've done. So
yeah,
I mean,
we can take a
if there's no sensitive data, Connor, I can promote Gail to be able to screen share, but I'm just going to put the caveat on that this will be available to anyone watching. So if there's any sensitive data, don't do that.
There shouldn't be. I mean, other than department names, I think that's probably all. You know something? No, I think I'd rather let me have another cup of coffee and think about that. Let me talk with Connor, and then it may be something worth presenting in the future, but maybe we can work it out and figure it out. So. But thank you, John.
Yeah, no problems. We've got flows which deal with Excel and deal with it quite elegantly about posting between different tables in Excel, and often that's the heart of it. So yeah, like you say, Connor, it's perhaps a one-to-one, but if at all we want to show demos around Excel type manipulation, it is possible in Power Automate. It's possible in a relatively elegant manner.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I've been impressed with the tool so far. It's just as easy as anything else in Power Automate, and easier than some things. And I work in an environment where everyone is still very used to Excel. And while I think a SharePoint list is better, they don't always. So.
Yeah, I think the flow we've got that we use for another purpose was to take data row by row from an Excel table and create a SharePoint row for it. So that may be relevant. I'll share that with you, Connor, if you've not already got access to that one.
That's exactly what I'm trying to do.
Oh, right, yeah, it's not too difficult, that one. Okay.
I think as well, what you just mentioned there about them not wanting to move away from Excel, it's kind of like a big thing that we see as well. And Microsoft doesn't kind of give you an easy, definitive answer as where to store your data, I don't think, as well. I think they're providing so many ways and means about kind of getting access to certain pieces of information, whether you want to store it as a table in Excel, or you want to bring it into SharePoint, or store it in a Dataverse, or perhaps even support SQL now. There's so many different ways. Yeah, I can understand why it can be a bit overwhelming as well for the rest of your team to get on board with where to store things.
Just in the sort of pause kind of way, you have a look at those other responses. There's a couple of questions from Teresa. The last one from Teresa, I'd love to answer because it isn't a silly question at all. The fact that we have 2 tools called Power Automate, I think I'm quite happy to just do a little bit of a, this is what my brain tells me about these 2 things. And even especially that you can access elements of each from different locations, and some you can and some you can't. Yeah, Connor's showing on screen now. You've got your desktop flows. Yeah, I'll just do a quick demo if that's all right, Connor. Just do a quick tour through that space, unless you want to go through that. You may have some things you'd like to share.
You can take over.
Let me grab the screen. I'll stick my my screen camera on, take you all off. There you go. You should see my screen. Yeah, I mean, so let me just call it up here so we can see what we're talking about. Power Automate. You see my son's games on my computer as well. He's constantly hacking into my computer and adding things from Steam or from Xbox, and he's not hacking. He's just using the profile I set up for him. But yeah, so to that point, there are two different tools that you can use that are both, I'm not going to update it yet, I'll remind me tomorrow, called Power Automate. And hey, isn't that nice and easy to understand? One, the difference is it's installed on your desktop, and actually behind the scenes it's a product that Microsoft purchased, and I forget the name of it. Wayne Wallace told me the name of it a few months back. They purchased a product which does what they call robotic process automation. Now that sounds fancy. What it does, to me, it's like a macro. If you ever used Excel macros, they automatically perform tasks for things in Excel. This is bigger than that. It's the same idea, but it's things that your desktop has access to. So you can still automate things that are on browsers in technology that sits maybe outside your PC. But when you start to create a new flow in Power Automate Desktop, I'll just show you that now. It's a Power Automate Desktop. Yeah, it was. I'm sure, Wayne, there was a product, and you sent me a link about the acquisition of this product, or I may have dreamt it. It may have been someone entirely different. But back to my point, you have actions that you can perform, and the trigger for a Power Automate desktop flow can actually be, confusingly, a cloud flow. It can actually be something else, but you'll very often set up a flow, for example, which says, let's just pick one here, launch Excel, right? And that'll launch the desktop version of Excel either with a blank document or with a document you tell it, and you can press play. And in the same sense as you press play on a macro, Power Automate Desktop will do that for you. So for me, Power Automate, as you see it, and your make.powerautomate.com accesses your Microsoft 365 cloud services and things outside it. If you want to do things in the context of your desktop machine and consume its power, you can create these Power Automate desktop flows. And as Connor quite rightly showed there, slightly confusingly, when you do that and you save them, you can see them in my desktop flows here. The reason for that is what I've just said. You can link from a cloud flow to a desktop flow using techniques where you're passing information, and back again if you wish to. And you can also, if you have the right licenses, you'll see here it's a premium connector is what they call it. You can initialize desktop flows directly from here. So it's just, you've got two tools for slightly different use cases. Don't know if that answers it. Anything to add, Connor? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, obviously, I think one of the big things there is if you're trying to access desktop flows from your cloud environment, your cloud Surface Power Automate, then it's likely one of the scenarios you're looking for is you're also trying to run a Power Automate desktop flow from within the cloud, which is possible, but you'll need what's called an RPA license to be able to do that.
Yes, that's right.
But yeah, that's it from me, I think.
Yeah, so Imran's question, that's it, softer motive. Thank you very much, Wayne. You've been my saviour on two different occasions. It's just a product that they acquired because it was really useful. To answer Imran's question, can they be shared with other users? Yes, they can. You can see here I have the option to use shares that are use flows that are shared with me. However, I haven't put my finger on why. Sometimes you don't get the option. I was just searching for share this flow actually, and I can't find it. Sometimes you don't get that option. However, that said, there's a really neat trick you can do. If you want to give your flow to somebody else, I'll just show you this one. I think this one opens up a folder with Excel documents in it, does something to them, and then resaves it. But so this is great for things where you've got libraries of Word documents that are legacy. You want to package them all up and send them. It's really, really good to be able to send them as PDFs. It's great to be able to do that sort of thing. But what you can do is you can press Control and C, and then I'll just shut that down. This won't work again. It'll make a fool of me. But you can actually copy and paste flows. So you could give someone, I'll just show you that actually. I think it's a text file at this point. Pull that over. Yeah, there you go. So if I was to send that text file to someone, you can share flows. They could just copy that, go into Power Automate desktop, open up a new flow and paste, and it would work. It would create the actions for them. There might be some configuration to do, but that's the longhand way around sharing. Lee, just to answer your question, the recording, effectively YouTube is recording this for us as we speak. So yeah, I'll ping the link into you. You can go and have a look at it afterwards on our YouTube channel. Cool. I think that's me for pad, Connor. There was another question actually just above it, wasn't there? Teresa said, I have a smart sheet with our mailing schedule with due dates. Would it be possible to set up a flow that notifies me of upcoming due dates? Let your brain process that.
I'm just trying to have a look where I missed this one.
So it's Teresa just above that one about pad. Teresa, when you say smart sheet with your mailing schedule, is that a system? Is that an Excel sheet? What is that? Could you just clarify that for us, please? We need a drum roll now. Okay, a spreadsheet with dates in it. Okay, spreadsheet with dates. Can you get it? Can you get Power Automate to read the data in a spreadsheet with dates and send you a Teams message, for example, is what I would do there. What are your thoughts, Connor?
So yeah, you obviously, I'm trying to think about the process behind it. You'll obviously have some form of column inside of Excel, which would have a list of dates. I'm trying to think what the process during Power Automate would be. So you've got something that we call an array, which is where you can collect a list of items, a list of values that you can have, and I think this is where expressions would probably come in here, where you would basically add that list of dates to an array as a variable or something inside of Power Automate. I'll try and show you what I mean. I'll do my
go on then.
best.
I was about to go into create a scheduled flow because I'm along the similar lines to you. I'm thinking scheduled flow. I'm thinking date diff, and if it's less than a certain amount, then do a thing.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what I would do here. So I'm just going to use an instant cloud flow. I'm just going to spotlight myself. I'm going to use an instant cloud flow for this, just to demonstrate this. So let's say, for example, we had a list of dates. Now I'm just trying to think of the easiest way to do this without having to go and create Excel spreadsheets and all of that sort of stuff. I think that'd be just a little bit too long for what we have here. Let's say, for example, we have an array of information, so it would come back something similar to this. And I'm trying to think if there's a proper date time format that I would need to use, but we'll just try this anyway. So I'm just going to add some dates into my array here.
So you could construct this array, couldn't you, by reading an Excel document? There's actions which allow you to read Excel. Yeah.
So you basically be using like a I think it's like a get rows or something like that inside of Excel.
Yeah, it is. You can open Excel, get row, go through a table. As long as it's in a table, the important thing is your data has to be in a table for Power Automate to understand it and see it.
Yeah. Now the issue that I've got, which shouldn't be an issue because essentially you can convert this to a string anyway. I'm just going to quickly just save and test this just to see if my array's written incorrectly here. Always make syntax errors, so I will just quickly just go and test this.
You do that automatically, Connor, but it's for those of you not familiar with Power Automate, I think the art that you've just shown there of testing often, even if you just create an action, go and test it, test often, really is quite a useful thing to share, and that's an array, isn't it?
Yeah, so we've got our array of 3 dates here, and you can see that we've got one at the bottom which is out of place, and that's just because of the order that they're written in. So if I wanted to order this, let's potentially look at as an expression that we can use. So I'd usually write expressions and place them inside of composers, because it kind of allows you to break down what it is you're doing. So we'll look at expressions, and it's usually we're going to be looking at either a calculation formula, a calculation expression, or we can look at I believe the logical, trying to figure out which one it would be. It might be a math expression.
So
there's going to be one here that's going to allow you to reorder, and I can't remember which one it's called. Do you have any ideas here, John?
no, just so my brain's thinking. I would for me, I'm not seeing the reorder step. What would the reorder be needed for? So the question is, can I get a date? Can I get Power Automate to read a bunch of dates one at a time and tell me if one is due? So I need to do a thing. I think that's how I read it. And please correct me if I'm wrong, Teresa. So I've got a list of dates, a flow that tells me I've got something coming up. So for me, I would be taking one at a time, or maybe taking a few, and then piece by piece, I'd be looking if that's within a set amount of time. So the ordering, to me, I'm not necessarily sure would be vital. You could do it.
So
what's the ordering step for?
I don't know. I think that's what you mentioned to me, wasn't it?
No,
I might be wrong. Okay.
Yeah. So the process
in terms of getting a due date. Now, I know that they've made some changes to this, and I've not really played in Power Automate since they've made the changes. But I think the calculation then would come down to using those ticks functions that we've used in the past. I'm not sure if they've got any date diff stuff now like they do in Power Apps to solve that. But essentially, what you used to be able to do was you'd be able to calculate basically the ticks for a date, and using that you could then say, for example, if the date that's coming from Excel is 3 days before today's date, and obviously that date is calculated in ticks, which is a ridiculously long number which I can never remember what it is, but essentially then you could then do something. So you'd use a condition there to do that once that kind of attribute or argument has been met, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Is that the sort of route you'd be thinking about here?
Yeah, so there is a date difference now in Power Automate, and I remember using it, Connor, and I remember thinking this isn't what I'd expected it to be, but it is there now, because when we did the vacation booking challenge, it didn't exist, did it? It is a new expression that you can use. I'm tinkering about with that now on my screen, so I don't even want me to just have a little play.
Yeah, I'll let you have a go on this one. It's been probably about a year since I started looking at, maybe a year or two since I was last doing date differences and calculations with dates.
Yeah, so I tell you what I'll do is I'm just going to create, I'm going to do a compose. One suggestion was, if you wanted to sort the dates, you could perhaps try a sort as well and sort the array, create the array like you did and sort it. I don't know whether that would work. It could well do, but let's just create a date. So what's the date today? 24th. Right. Okay. So I'm going to create 23rd. Oh yeah, I'm going to get into time formats and UTC and all that good stuff, aren't I? But let's pretend that's not a problem. I'm going to say, in fact, I'm going to give this a name. I'm going to say this is the date from Excel. So I would have to have steps to pull data in from Excel or the Smartsheet or whatever, which ties into that other question that we'll look into offline, Connor, about pulling data in from Excel and spitting it to SharePoint. It's just the same process, the first part of that. Let's assume we've done it. We've grabbed a date. What I would now be thinking is, and we're going into the voyage of the unknown because I haven't used date difference in earnest yet. I'd want to say, is that date, what's it expecting of me? So it expects a start string and an end string, and it's going to give me a number back. Okay. So I want the end timestamp to be probably another expression, UTC now. So give me the date difference between that date that you got from Excel and UTC now. Let's just see what that gives me. And then I will be saying, if my parameter was like 1 or 2 days, if it's within 1 or 2 days, I probably have a little condition. So let's just see whether this is going to give me anything. I don't know. Yeah, so what have I done wrong there? Done something wrong. Date difference. Date time string was invalid. I didn't think it would be valid. It needs to be that format. Go on, Connor, you're good with formats. What's me format wrong here? Should I have it with a dot or something?
I have a feeling that you're looking for an ISO standard format, which is all of that hour, date, minute, seconds, Zulu time malarkey that we have. Just bear with me and I'll find you the correct format.
Thank you, mate. Meanwhile, what I might try and do is just quickly, can't remember if I'm going to get this to work. Don't know if that'll work. Nah, didn't like it. Didn't think it'd like it. I just need to get a date into there as a test date. You're right, it's got all the extra stuff in it. Shoot.
Bear with me.
And just as we do, go on.
If you, for now, just do a, I'm just trying to have a look actually. I think that might be the wrong way.
Yeah, I'll do this. Format, date, time. That should do.
You can also use, I believe, past date time as well, or you could just type it in manually. That's not an issue either.
You know what the format is?
Yeah, the format is going to be the year.
Yeah.
You don't need to. I don't believe you need to put this in double quotes.
Okay.
Using hyphens to separate. So 2023 and then dash, then your month, then your day.
Zeros, yeah. 23rd.
Then it's a capital T, followed by the time. So you could just
Just do that.
So yeah,
colons, an M.
And then you also need no, it's just colons between the time.
Okay. So 1300 00
with the seconds as well. I think you've got those already.
Let's just do 60. Oh yeah, I have got the seconds. Is that, yeah, that's right, isn't it? So, and let's just go and yeah, that should be right.
And I believe that is fine to use. I might be wrong though.
Look at you. Yeah, we need to know about time formats. Connor's your man. So, right, okay. So, what's it done? What has it done? What have we got there? That's
what you've got back there is also an ISO standard format of 1 day. What looks to be 1 day, and then the hours, yes, followed by milliseconds, which is it's interesting that they've calculated the milliseconds there as well.
So the simple answer to the question is what you, in my view, I'd spend, a little while pulling in the data from Excel and preparing it, getting it in the right format. I would then use date difference to set a test to get some information out from the date difference. And as a result of that, if that number that I was given back was less than something, I would then just simply add a condition. And I would say if the output of the compose is less than, let's just say 1, then do something. That's how I would think about that problem. Obviously, without building, if you wanted to
send out like notifications or emails, you can do that in there as well.
Yeah, so I'm not going to build it, but I'll just show you the principle. Then probably what I would do is I would go into the whole genuinely pain of sending Teams messages. That's how I might do it. You could send an email, you could send something else, an adaptive card, whatever. They're probably a bit easier. But if you wanted to send a Teams message, so long as you've got a channel set up in Teams, it's dead easy. You can just post a message in a chat or a channel, choose the chat or a channel, and then post some data in. If you want to create chats dynamically, it gets a bit messier. Yeah, good. I'm glad you said that makes sense, because I was just checking myself then. I hope that makes sense, Teresa, and I hope that helps. But hey, look, if you're going through these processes and you get stuck, I genuinely encourage you to use the forum in the academy and ask the specific questions where things don't go right, because there's loads of people will help you, including Connor and myself, on those specific problems. Connor.
Yeah. So yeah, obviously I know that you've got to disappear in a short while, but I'm happy to kind of go through the last couple of these questions that are still lingering in the forms here.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, so thank you, Connor. Just what I want to say before I do, so for me, I do need to dip off at 1:15. I'm going to go and get some new hearing aids fitted, yay, so I can actually hear on this side of my head, which would be fantastic. However, I will be around the academy, and as will Connor, but if you're happy to carry on, Connor, I'll come off camera and give you the spotlight, and I'll just fade away. Any you don't get answered today or you don't feel comfortable with, we'll just answer as posts. So don't worry if you don't hear from us today. We'll answer those in due course in the academy, we promise. And I'll see you all same time, same place next week for Power BI if you're interested. Thanks for your questions. It's been really good fun.
Cheers, John.
Over to you, Connor.
So yeah, next question that we got inside of the academy on that form that we posted is from Roberto. It says, so what are you having trouble with? A better understanding of how to keep a flow running even after 30 days. This is a timeout limit set by Microsoft. How do I restart this flow and continue waiting for either a change in the list or an approval outcome? So yes, that has been a highly requested thing, which they don't seem to want to change. I've seen this for years, that we're limited to 30 days. So an easy way, the best way around this, which I've always tried to do with in these scenarios, is you create a way for a repetitive flow or a scheduled flow to kind of take place instead of your automated flow that you're probably looking at there. So obviously with an automated flow, you're relying on something happening within that 30-day period, and if it doesn't, then your flow will turn itself off. And yes, you can go in and manually turn these flows back on. But what is kind of like the best practiced kind of way of doing this now is you basically create a recurrence flow, and this will be this could run perhaps once a day. Anything under 30 days is going to be fine. You can run it. And what you would do is potentially have if you've got a list of things inside of SharePoint, for example, which is what would usually trigger your flow, you would create a separate column in there, and that could just be like a Boolean face value column, so a yes or no field against individual records. And every day when that runs, it would basically just see if something needs to be done or not, and you can use like a choice column to do that, like a yes or no, or a Boolean type column in SharePoint to do that. And you can then build your flow with that in mind, rather than kind of waiting for that automated process to happen. And then obviously you change that value inside of your flow. I'm not sure if that makes sense what I'm explaining there. I'm going to try my best to quickly build this out, and I'm not sure if it is possible in the time that we have, but I'll do my best. Let me share my screen. So I'm just going to come in here and create a new list. And just call it new list p-auto test for now, so I just know to delete this later. And let's say, for example, we've got a title, which could be anything. We would essentially have a new column in here, which would be a yes or no column. And I'll call this should run. And default value can be yes until it has run, and then we can switch it back to no. So I'm just going to add a few items in here. I'm just going to add some names in for now. And let's say, for example, we wanted John to actually not run. We only wanted to do something if this is marked as run. So let's just go back and create a new flow. And we could make this a scheduled cloud flow. And we could say that we want to run it today, and we'll say once a day. So like I say, anything less than a month, it is fine, because that flow is going to continue to run every single day, which means it's not going to time out, it's not going to expire. So we can make it 1 day from today, that's fine. And I would probably go down the step of, first we obviously need to look at the SharePoint list that we want. So let's do a get items, and we'll point to my address, which is the Cloud 365 sandpit, and the list name, I can't remember what I called it now, it was the new list P auto. So you can do things like filter queries as well, to kind of, again, get back just the results that you want. So for example, I could just use the filter query to pull back the should run. And now I'd have to figure out exactly how to do that from probably my list settings, because you have to use the name or the kind of behind the scenes name for this column, which you can get by coming into the back end of SharePoint, and you can look at the field name here. So it's called should run. Now, if I go back to here, what I can do is, I believe a Boolean, and it's been a while since I've done this, I believe a Boolean you can just say equals true, and then that should return only results that equal true. Now let's give that a quick try. It might be in double quotes, and again, this is always the case when it comes to building things, is nothing ever works the first time. Yeah, so it's yeah, it's obviously not valid there. So we need to figure out what it is that needs to go in here. It might have to be in double quotes. So we'll go ahead and test that. See what we're getting back here. So it might have to be yes. Again, it's very different for different things that you're doing. So like Booleans can be yes or no. They can also be true or false. So we're going to try in quotes, try yes, and see if that works. Let me just quickly do a search for the correct formula, because I cannot remember. Bear with me. Of course, first of all, we're using filter queries. It's because I've been spending so long inside of Power Apps. Yes, we use EQ instead of equals, which means equals. You can use GE, which is greater than, LT, less than, and all that sort of stuff. So yes, I believe we can, again, we can also use binary for the yes or no as well. So I believe we can just do that, which will either be the yes or no, but we'll give that a try. So 0 being false, 1 being true, or the other way around. Depends how I've set up my list. Let's have a look at the outputs, and I know this is a little bit messy, but we can see that if we go and look for the I do a search for the title. So you can see we've got title here is Connor, and an easier way to do this, rather than actually opening up the outputs, we could just do a compose here just to double check that. and just go ahead and grab the, I believe it's the list of items. And we should be able to just see that directly in our compose. There you go. So we can see that we have should run as true. So it's only going to grab me that first item in the list. So what you can do with that is if we just go back to the question, that's the thing when you spend too long building something, you forget what the question was. Is how you can obviously keep it running for 30 days. So we can use that this sort of approach instead. So for example, we can say that we then want to I don't know, send an email or something inside of here, which you would put between this and whatever your next steps are. So the last thing that you would want to do is you obviously want to change the status of that record. So you would do then an update item. And again, we're looking for that SharePoint connector. Again, we'll point to our site address. I can find it. There we go. That's our sandpit. Our list name, we're looking for this one, and then the ID. We can use the get items ID, and that's going to place it in an array because obviously it can potentially bring back more than one item. But essentially, because we're only bringing in the records that we want, we know that we don't have to do any filter in here either when it comes to update the item, because the list of IDs, which is going to be on a loop because it's in the supply to each, and then just going to be updated. So the title does need to be filled out. We can replace this with the original title from the get items, and then we can just change the should run to no. So if we go take a look at our actual SharePoint list again, so you can see that myself here is should run, and this should, when I run this, switch that back to off. It's just going to cycle through the results. We'll just give our SharePoint list a refresh, and you can see should run has now been turned off, which means that when this flow next runs, it's not going to find those true values, if you like, because our filter query is going to filter those out. So as long as you perform any of the actions that you want to do before this kind of apply to each, but after this get items, then that will do anything that you need it to do. So it's a way of running a kind of automated cloud flow. Again, the issue with this sort of approach that you'll have is, like I say, it's going to update like not in real time. You're going to have this update once a day. You can reduce the amount of time that it potentially takes for this flow to run. You could have this run every 10 minutes, I believe is the smallest you can do. But just be aware that obviously more demand on the server is gonna eat up what resources you have available for Power Automate. But yeah, that's a way around kind of avoiding that scheduled flow where something may not happen for 30 days. With this approach, you are checking to see if something is happening on a regular basis, and that becomes part of your flow. So the real important thing here is the fact that we are using the recurrence trigger instead of, for example, when a new item is added to SharePoint. So hopefully that answered that question, Roberto, if you're still around. Okay, so I think there was potentially another question. See how much time we've got. Probably got another chance for one more question, maybe. Let's see where we're at. So got a question from Linda. Says, wonder if it's possible to build a flow to pull a fragment out of our home/main page of a SharePoint communication site and add it to a Word document in a SharePoint folder. So there is ways around it, and again, this would require me to dive into to the Graph API a little bit more and kind of approach it in that way. So out of the box, as in terms of triggers and actions, I don't believe we have anything that allows us to surface web parts directly from a SharePoint page. What we can do, for example, is we can add things like news items to our SharePoint list. However, we can't dive straight in and go, right, I want to grab this web part and grab information specifically from that web part. What you can do is obviously you can pull in information and push out information to lists and document libraries. So it's potentially one to look at down the road, and that is going to be using the Graph API to do that. The Graph API does unlock a lot of functionality that you otherwise wouldn't get out of these kind of default connectors, default actions that we're provided out of the box. So again, I'm not going to get into Graph API today because it's a little bit out of scope of this type of video, but essentially, yes, you can use things like HTTP connectors inside of Power Automate to access the Graph API. Once you've got the right Graph API calls that you need, then you should be able to kind of access more information about things like SharePoint sites and things that otherwise wouldn't be accessible to you. So let's have a look. I think we've got one more question in here. Seeing if we can surface this one out. So it says, can you please walk us through the process of creating a HTML table? This is from Imran for populating a Word document or email. So again, this is a little bit of a niche topic, and it depends on the use case. Because what you can do inside of Word is you can create what is, I can't remember what they're called now, but if you enable the developer tools inside of Word, I'll see if I can just bring this up and show you. Inside of Word in your options, if we go to, I believe it is the customized ribbon. Yeah, if you go to customized ribbon under the Word tools, you have the developer option here. And what this allows you to do is you can place things in your Word document that essentially becomes dynamic content, which Power Automate can automatically populate. We did this in a recent demo. I don't think I have the original file here, potentially not. But essentially, if we went and let's see if we can find a template to use quickly. So we'll go look for an online template. We'll look for a certificate because it's kind of a common one. I'll just go ahead and grab employee of the month. We'll create a new document here. So you can see that we've got some text inside of this Word document. And what we can do here is if we select on one of the text items, and again, you can do this with anything that already exists in Word, and you come to the developer tools up here after enabling it in your options. If you come to the controls, this control section here, you can add a what's called a content control. So we can add like a rich text content control. And you can see nothing much has changed apart from the fact that this has now got a little box around it. And with that selected, we can come to the properties and we can give it a title and a tag. So I could say that this is, for example, I'm just going to call this input 1 for now. So we've changed the title and the tag to both input 1. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go and save this inside of one of our folders. I'll go whack it in the documents of here for now. I think that should be fine. And I'm just going to call this pautotest.docx. So with that now saved in a location that is accessible in the cloud, we can go and create a flow which can populate that Word document. So you don't necessarily need to create, like I say, a HTML table to do this. you can kind of do this directly in the flow. So let's go ahead and create a, we'll just do an instant cloud flow for now. And I think the steps that we're looking for here, if I can remember what they are, is we'll first look for Word, because we want the Word online business connection. So yeah, these are premium connectors, by the way, just to kind of point that out. But we can do populate a Microsoft Word template, and it's going to try and set up the connector for us. Hopefully this demo goes to plan, because it's been a while since I've done this. We're essentially looking for the template, which I know is saved inside of the SharePoint site sandpit, and document library. I think we put it into documents, and we should be able to just go and find this template to use now, which was the p-auto test. And after putting that in, you can see we got a bit of an issue. Not sure why that's happening. We'll give it another try. Just going to go ahead and recreate that connector. Create a Microsoft Word template. So again, go and grab our SharePoint site, the document library where it's stored, and we should again just be able to choose the file. I'm not sure why that is. Doesn't contain template elements. That might be because this should be saved as